This is VSiN's College Football Betting Podcast.
Welcome in. Week 8 of the college football season is upon us. Alongside Matt Youmans, I am Tim Murray. It is the VSiN College Football Betting Podcast as we break down the Week 8 card, give out our favorite plays. Just a reminder, appreciate all of you out there. A little salute, the rate, review, and subscribe. Saw the VSiN College Football Betting Podcast and some of those podcast rankings, Matt. So we're happy about that. And hopefully we'll be happier come late Saturday night with some winners and some victories in our pocket. So let's get right into it. By the way, if you're wondering, yes, Matt does have a play on the final game of the card. It wouldn't be our show if you didn't have a play on the final play of the card. So we will get to a little late night Pac-12 after dark. But let's start with the game of the week, Matt. College game day, big noon kickoff. Everyone will be there. Fox, noon Eastern. We've got Penn State, number 7 in the country, against number 3, Ohio State. The Nittany Lions are a 4.5-point favorite at most shops. 45.5 is the total. As we record this right now, Circa has touched 46. DraftKings has hit 45 with the total. How are you looking to attack, if at all, this game on Saturday?
Yeah, initially I had Penn State circled as a potential play. I thought I might be on the dog here, but I think the dog is a little bit too popular in terms of being a public dog because the betting market's not that impressed with Ohio State. Neither am I. I've been talking about it for several weeks. But the more I look at this, I'm going to pass on the Penn State side. I think the under is slightly a better bet here. You've got the top 3 scoring defenses in college football all in the Big Ten. Now, a lot of that has to do with those defenses facing some pretty weak offenses as well. And what you have here are 2 freshman quarterbacks, essentially, Drew Aller from Penn State and Kyle McCord for Ohio State. McCord did have some big game experience on the road against Notre Dame where he came through in some pressure situations. But really, if you look at Aller for Penn State, he's played on the road at Northwestern and Illinois.
Ooh,
this is going to be... That's going to be a different story here in Columbus on Saturday. And they don't call James Franklin Big Game James. He's 4-14 against Ohio State and Michigan, including 1-8 against the Buckeyes. And he's the type of guy who finds a way to screw up some key game management decisions, typically in the second half of these big games. Now, I'm a little bit concerned about Penn State's offense and the deliberate pace and how they march down the field and move the change and don't hit any really big plays. Penn State doesn't stretch the field vertically with the passing game, and I think that could be a problem here against this really improved Ohio State defense. So I'm going to pass on the side. Unfortunately, the best number on the total is not there anymore. So I think live betting is always an option for you in a game like this. I hate to say things like that, but if you haven't played it yet, that's the way you have to look at it because you can't start betting games at the worst numbers.
There's no doubt.
That's going to be a bad strategy.
And obviously we record this on a Thursday, so numbers have been moved a little bit. We've made some bets, and there's one bet coming up later that I was on has moved off of that number, but we will certainly discuss it. I am going to take the under 45.5, 45 being a very key number, 24-21, those types of scores there. You mentioned explosiveness. Coming into this year, and I think, Matt, you were pretty high on Penn State. I know Wes Reynolds, who wrote up the Big Ten for the VSiN Betting Guide, your partner on VSiN tonight, loved Penn State to win this conference. And it's certainly possible when you look at the defense, but how disappointing is it that Katron Allen and Nicholas Singleton, respectively, their 2 longest runs this year, 18 and 19 yards.
Against some pretty weak defenses.
Against West Virginia, Delaware, Illinois, Iowa. Iowa's great, very good defensively. Northwestern and UMass. They are 6-0 ATS, are the Nittany Lions. But what leads me to the under here is per play opponent adjusted defense. I saw Pick 6 Previews on Twitter tweet this out. Penn State number 1, Ohio State number 2. Per play opponent adjusted offense, Ohio State 10, Penn State number 40. It has been surprising. Injury certainly something to keep an eye on here. I was texting with Andrew Gillis, who covers the Buckeyes for Cleveland.com, and he said that there is a hope that Travion Henderson, Chip Trainum, and Mayan Williams will all be back. Remember, all three of those guys missed the Purdue game last week.
Trainum was in. I think he got knocked out in the first half, didn't he?
And Emeka Egbuka, he missed last week.
Yep.
He is apparently 50-50 with an ankle injury. Marvin Harrison Jr. should be just fine. They're dealing with an injury with Denzel Burke, their number one corner. So there's a lot of injuries there for Ohio State. I'll say this. I don't play player props in college football, but I think Cade Stover could be a guy that could have a big game, the tight end for Ohio State. Thinking back to the Notre Dame game, he was tremendous and was really the safety valve for Kyle McCord. My initial lean was Ohio State in some sort of money line parlay. I'm going to pass on that. I do think the Buckeyes win, but I'm not ultra confident. I'm going to go with the under here, under 45.5 in this one. I think it's a pretty low-scoring affair. And would you agree with this? I said this throughout the week. The two best coordinators in this game on Saturday, I think, are Manny Diaz, the defensive coordinator for Penn State, and Jim Knowles, the defensive coordinator for Ohio State.
I don't think there's any doubt about it. And that's why you've seen this total drop, talking about, not taking bad numbers, betting bad numbers. This total opened 48.5 at Circa.
Would have loved to have that.
And DraftKings. That 48.5 is long gone.
All right, let's get to a game at night. It is not the Pac-12 After Dark Showdown, but it is a revenge spot, a bounce-back spot, however you want to classify it. We've got number 14 Utah. By the way, Kyle Whittingham and this squad being 14th in the country, tip of the cap to them with this offense. Utah at number 18 USC. USC coming off of the 48-20 loss against Notre Dame. This game 8 p.m. on Fox, Matt. USC looking for revenge from last year and to get that terrible taste out of their mouth after last week.
Yeah, I think the Utah offense is really going to be a problem here because the Utes, the way they play right now, they can't trade shots with USC, and you're catching the Trojans at a bad time. They just got their butts whipped. They got humbled in South Bend. Who called that, Tim?
I believe you did.
Okay. It was not my game of the year, but I did play Notre Dame last week. And, let's face it, USC's been soft. And that's a problem with Lincoln Riley teams. At Oklahoma, at USC. I think Caleb Williams, and I said this in the offseason, and a big USC fan kind of shot back at me. He said, that's not going to happen. I said, well, I think Caleb Williams making all this money in the NIL deals is going to be a negative because, street fighters don't sleep in silk robes, right? And
street fighters aren't on Wendy's commercials.
Yeah, and when you start making that much money, you're going to lose some of your hunger, your desire, your edge. And what have you seen of Caleb Williams? He's a little bit too casual, too cool.
A little off-balance throws.
Yep, throwing sidearm, off balance. His mechanics have slipped, gotten a little sloppy. And I think what a butt kicking at Notre Dame does for this SC team is going to be a good thing because they got to have an attitude adjustment. You can't coast through this season and think you're too cool for school. And USC found that out last week. Now, when you're looking at Utah, I don't know if Cameron Rising's going to be back for this game or not. I mean, we seem to talk about that almost every week.
I don't know if he plays this year.
Yeah, I wouldn't guess he's going to be back here, but the problem is Utah doesn't have the quarterbacks who can make any big plays. If you think about the UCLA-Utah game, Dante Moore throws a pick six right off the bat. Utah's up 7-0. The crowd's in a frenzy in Salt Lake City. What did the Utah offense do the rest of the day? 7 points. All right, this game's going to be at the Coliseum. It's going to be a different story. I think SC's the right side here. Again, the best number's gone. This opened 4 at Circa. It's up to 7. So at this point, I think if you haven't played USC, put it on some sort of money line parlay or play it a different way.
Well, I know you have a money line parlay with USC in it, which we'll get to the second half of that money line parlay momentarily. I do like this spot for USC. Like you said, lackadaisical all year. Second half against Colorado, took the foot off the gas. Only win by 7, and Colorado's got a field goal, or excuse me, a onside kick to try to get. Needing triple overtime to beat Arizona, and then the performance last week: 5 turnovers, give up a kickoff return for a touchdown against Notre Dame, and Notre Dame was just more physical. Look at Utah. You talked about Cam Rising. Brent Keithy, who was supposed to be a big returning piece this year, and you think back to last year, Dalton Kincaid came in when he got hurt and had some monster games, including against USC. Keithy and Rising have combined for 0 snaps this year. And then Thomas Yasmin, who has made some big plays this year, had a touchdown against Oregon State. He's out for the season as well. I just don't know what you can trust here on this Utah offense. Bryson Barnes reemerged as the starter last week after the bye week. They put up 445 yards on Cal, but you and I have learned Cal's defense ain't that impressive here. So I just think USC, I think it's a buy low opportunity on the Trojans. I think they're motivated. You've got the revenge angle for sure, Matt, here in this one. So I'm going to lay the 7 with USC. Okay. I also will tail your money line parlay, which we'll get to. We'll see if we have enough time to sneak it in. Tennessee, Alabama, 3:30 on CBS, Matt. What do you like here in this one?
I like Bama. I think it's going to be a revenge spot for what happened last year in Knoxville, but also it's a lot more than that, Tim. It's not just revenge. I don't like this Tennessee offense with Joe Milton at quarterback. Early in the season when the Vols went to the Swamp and faced Florida, and they were laying, 7 points on the opener, I was laughing out loud. Seriously, you're going to make Joe Milton that big a favorite on the road?
Who called that, man?
Tim Murray. I was on that as well. We were both on that,
We were both
right?
on it, baby.
And I'm going to be against Tennessee again here, but you're not laying, Tennessee was laying 6.5, 7 at Florida. Now catching 8.5 at Alabama, I don't think it's going to matter. I like Jalen Milroe and the improvement he's showing at quarterback. And I think, have you ever heard this cliche? Tide rolls, Tim.
You're going to fight on, and you're going to roll tide. Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-da. How about them Seminoles down in Tallahassee, Matt? They going to win big? It is the VSiN College Football Betting Podcast.
This is VSiN's College Football Betting Podcast.
With all 4 major sports in action, there's no better time of year to be a sports bettor. With our new Sports Equinox special, well, there's no better time to become a VSiN Pro subscriber. Sign up now, get full VSiN Pro access to everything we do through May 1st for only $120. That includes daily best bets, unlimited access to our betting splits, plus our exclusive betting content for the MLB playoffs, college football, rest of the NFL season, March Madness, NBA and NHL regular seasons, and the NFL draft. Don't miss out on this limited time offer. VSiN.com/subscribe to sign up now. Alongside Matt Youmans, I am Tim Murray. 3 games in the books as a under bet for me on Penn State, Ohio State. That line has certainly moved quite a bit. USC and Utah, part of a money line parlay for Mr. Youmans with the Trojans and the Tide. And I'm going to lay the 7 with USC in that spot against the Utes. But I also have tailed Matt on the USC Alabama money line parlay. Matt, primetime ABC. Number 16 Duke visiting number 4 Florida State. This line has been interesting this week because it was 13.5, 13 when Mike Elko, the head coach of Duke, went on his radio show and said that Riley Leonard practiced and they're hopeful that he's going to play. But then he continued to say, but we're not going to put him in a bad situation. Well, what is it? Because he's been out for about a month with an ankle sprain, and for Duke, they have to play at Louisville next week, and I would imagine the goal for Duke this year is to make it to the ACC championship game, and you could argue that the Louisville game is more important for that than this particular game. So we've got the graphic up there. We submitted our picks to producer Wyatt early this morning, and I said, let's lay the 14 with Florida State. I don't believe those 14s exist anymore. I guess we'll go official play 14 for Florida State. Obviously, wouldn't play with the hook. But here's why I like Florida State in this spot. Number 1, Riley Leonard. I really believe Matt's not going to play. And you look at this team in Duke. They were completely stymied in the first half against Notre Dame, had just 39 rushing yards in that first half. And then they figured some things out and ultimately were able to take the lead before ultimately losing that one down the stretch. Henry Boleyn IV, Matt, started last week for Duke against NC State. He completed 4 passes, 4 of 12, 107 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. This Duke offense had just 43 plays against the Wolfpack. Now, they won that game 24-3. So I would look at maybe a team total under. Duke is sitting at 16.5. I think that could be one way to look at this if you don't want to lay the 14.5. They have only played one road game this year at mighty UConn, which is pretty tough place to play. We all know the rent up there. And then I look at Florida State. I think this is a big spot for them. They should be healthy. Johnny Wilson back. The reason Duke, Matt, had so much success offensively or defensively against Notre Dame, in addition to the fact that they're good, and I like Mike Elko quite a bit, Jaden Thomas, Jaden Greathouse, both were out for the Irish in that game. Neither one of those guys are in the same ballpark as Keon Coleman or Johnny Wilson. And then Jaheim Bell, the tight end, the transfer from South Carolina, I think he could have a big game. Mitchell Evans from Notre Dame had a big game against Duke. So I think this is a tough one for the Blue Devils. I would be surprised if Riley Leonard plays. And if Henry Boleyn IV is out there on the road with the Tomahawk, chant going on, I just see this being a rough one for the Blue Devils as they get ready for Louisville. So I laid 14 with Florida State. If you don't want to do that, I guess I would look Duke team total under 16.5.
This Duke defense is the real deal.
Yes,
the problem is you're going to face Florida State offense, very difficult to match up with. When your offense is going 3 and out a lot during the day, that's going to put a lot of stress on the defense, and I have no interest in the dog here. I will say this, Tim. Can you repeat the stats for Henry Boleyn last week?
4 of 12. 107 yards.
After that performance, he was contacted by Iowa coach Kirk Ferentz, who said, if you enter the transfer portal, we'd love to have you in Iowa City.
Oh, man. Duke had 301 yards offense against NC State. I still can't believe a FBS low last week, 43 plays in that game. Well, you brought up Iowa, so let's get to the mighty Hawkeyes, who won 15-6 last week over Wisconsin. And in that win, they lost Eric All, their tight end, to a torn ACL. 21 catches, 299 yards this season. He is their leading receiver. In addition to the fact that Iowa has already lost Luke Lachey. He was out for the year, lost after 2 games. He has had 10 catches through those first 2 games. And, of course, they do not have the services of their initial starting quarterback, Cade McNamara. So they're at home, and they're only laying 3.5 or 4 against the Golden Gophers. Riddle me that, Batman. What do you make of Minnesota and Iowa here on Saturday at Kinnick?
Well, I haven't bet this yet, but I plan to bet it. And if you say there's a 4 out there, I'll grab the 4. I only saw 3.5s on the screen, but
so I'll give you a little.
There's one book in Vegas with a 4.
There's a book in Vegas that has it at 3.5. However, the 3.5 is even money. So I went into the kiosk and I clicked. All right, well, what if I do it at 4? And it was minus 110.
Okay.
So
really?
there you go. There's your Minnesota. Plus the 4, but 3.5, 4 for Minnesota. Can we trust the Greek gunslinger, Kaliakmanis, Ethan Kaliakmanis?
I don't know if we can trust him, but I tell you what, in a game with a total of 31 and a half, it feels like you have to take the 3.5 here with the Gophers. And the Iowa defense, special teams might score and just blow everything up, but these Minnesota-Iowa games, going to be ugly. It's going to be low scoring. There's no question about it, because even a total of 31, I would think about playing it over. But I have a fact for you here that we're going to talk about with the Air Force game. It's going to discourage me from doing this, but I think the Iowa offense is so limited that you feel like you have to take the 3.5 with PJ Fleck in this spot. Because last week I watched the Wisconsin game, and believe me, that was a bad game for me. I like the Badgers. Their season win total bet is not going to be shot because their quarterback Tanner Mordecai went down with an injury in that game, and I think Wisconsin's season is going to go down the tubes probably because of that. But over a span of 6 drives in that game, Iowa had 4 total yards. Okay, you're going to lay 3.5 points with a team like this? No, you can't do it. Just on principle, I have to take the points with the Gophers. And I think the so-called magic carpet ride that Iowa's on, where they win every week, and everybody says, how the hell is this team winning? At some point, it's got to hit a dead end. And I think the Hawkeyes, I'm going to say, lose this game to the Gophers in Iowa City.
Yeah, I'm on Minnesota as well. By the way, we have a tweet from America's Insider, the Stash himself, Brett McMurphy. Over-under total for Minnesota at Iowa is down to 31.5 points, tied for the lowest in college football in the past 20 years. And as he stated, yes, of course, the two previous games were Iowa games. The bowl game this past year, Iowa and Kentucky, which Iowa won 21-0, and Iowa-Minnesota 13-10 as well.
The Stash tweeted this, and then the total dropped to 31 across the board, and Caesars now showing 30.5.
Stash is moving lines. That's what he's doing. The Floyd of Rosedale trophy on the line. Give me the Gophers. Sky Yuma. Let's go, PJ Fleck. Let's stay in the Big Ten. Number 2, Michigan at Michigan State. This is the primetime game on NBC. 24s pretty much across the board here for the home dog in Michigan State, Matt.
Well, we've talked about Michigan and its offense, but, playing at a deliberate pace where you don't have a high volume, a high number of plays, and Michigan really not creating a lot of explosive plays either. And I think what you've seen with the Spartans, and a lot of people left the Spartans for dead after the Mel Tucker mess, but they did not have mass transfers like we thought they were going to have. And actually, Michigan State went to Iowa City, and the Spartans probably should have won that game. It was a punt return touchdown for the Hawkeyes that flipped the game. Then the Spartans last week blew a big lead at Rutgers. I think you have seen Michigan State play a little bit better football. And also, Michigan has covered big numbers 3 weeks in a row against Nebraska, Minnesota, Indiana. Jim Harbaugh's had trouble with the Spartans. 2-5-1 against the spread. He's lost a couple times as a big favorite. I have to take the points here. I took 24.5 Michigan State. I think the dog can hang around and make this game interesting.
Michigan State plus the 5. Very easy bet last week, right? 24-6 going into the fourth quarter, and then Rutgers chopping that wood. Got the cover. Or got the win, but did not get the cover. So the Spartans catching 24. We got 2 late-night games to get to on the other side of the break. How do the Washington Huskies respond after a thrilling victory over their arch-rival, the Oregon Ducks? Arizona State goes to Seattle. UCLA heads to the Farm to take on Stanford. Those games and much more on the College Football Betting Podcast.
This is VSiN's College Football Betting Podcast.
Basketball season is ready to tip off, and the VSiN experts have been hard at work tracking the latest player moves to help you bet smarter. Become a VSiN Pro subscriber today and get all new NBA betting guide featuring up-to-date previews on all 30 teams, futures, and year-long player props, best bets on player awards like Rookie of the Year, live betting strategies, plus strategy and advice on building your own NBA betting model from senior NBA analyst Jonathan Von Tobel. Give yourself an edge this season and get the VSiN NBA betting guide by becoming a VSiN Pro subscriber today. VSiN.com/subscribe. We keep it rolling here on the VSiN College Football Betting Podcast, Week 8 of the college football season, and the 2 latest games on the card, 10:30 Eastern, and wouldn't you know it, Matt Youmans has a play on both of them. But it's a conference that, Matt, you like to bet quite a bit, and let's head to Seattle. As number 5 Washington, the odds-on favorite Michael Penix Jr. to win the Heisman Trophy, they will be hosting Arizona State in what is no doubt going to be a letdown spot for the Huskies. And we've seen the market move in that direction, as this was north of 4 touchdowns earlier this week, and now it's 27. You can even find a 26 out there. I'll let you go first because I think you're going to hit on a lot of the things that I am looking to bet in this one as well. 10:30 FS1, Sun Devils coming off a bye against the Huskies.
Yeah, I got to say, last week's nightcap in Honolulu was very frustrating, by the way, because Hawaii fell behind 17-0, then got back in the game late. I felt like it was 90+% to cover that game. And guess what happened, Tim? Kid fumbled the ball on Hawaii's 20, and San Diego State takes it in for a touchdown and covers the number. Sometimes that's going to happen. Hopefully Arizona State doesn't make some sort of late-game goof like that here. Did you realize, and I saw this in Mark Lawrence's newsletter this week, that Arizona State is 14-1 against the spread in the last 15 in this series.
Wow.
That was kind of hard to believe. But the Sun Devils have played a lot better the last 3 games against USC, Cal, and Colorado. And one thing is they've found a quarterback, an unlikely quarterback, because they played 4 guys this year. But Trenton Bourquette, 679 passing yards in the last 2 games. And actually, Arizona State's offense has showed great improvement here. Young coach Kenny Dillingham, I think, has found some of the right buttons to hit. And Arizona State, like I said, that game against USC on that Saturday night in Tempe, I don't think it was a fluke, because Sun Devils went to Berkeley, played much better against Cal, probably should have beat Colorado at home. So they've been close. They've been a lot closer. And you know, this is mostly about the spot for Washington. Last week I was on the Huskies laying 2.5. Felt fortunate to get the win there, because I don't think that Washington was a better team for the majority of that game last week. Oregon's coach, Dan Lanning, mismanaged a couple of key situations, but the Huskies survived. Fans stormed the field. Michael Penix is the conquering hero. Now He's an odds-on favorite to win the Heisman. But Penix was banged up in that game. He took some big hits. He was hobbling around. And I think this is a classic flat spot for a team that just won its biggest game of the year. Fans storm the field. Quarterback's banged up. Arizona State rolls in as a team that's not really going to get the Washington players' attention. I took 28 with Arizona State early in the week.
Ditto. All of that. This is a incredible letdown spot. Arizona State coming off a bye. This will be their Super Bowl, a team that can't go to a bowl game. And even if they could go to a bowl game, they're not going to get enough wins to go to a bowl game. Year 1, I'm sure they've been looking at this. They loved everything they saw. Night game. I think Arizona State hangs around. So I'm with you. I took that bet as well. Took to 28. And I think this is a late night get back type of spot for Arizona State taking a dog late. This won't be an official play, because I know that you had this one, so this will be on Matt's ledger, but I'm with him on the Sun Devils. Another late night game. We've got 25th ranked UCLA headed to the Farm to take on Stanford. I want to see your 65-1 in-game ticket that you took on Stanford to come back from 29-0. What a performance from the Cardinal there in Boulder last Friday night. I had no skin in the game, and I was just sitting there watching and saying, I can't believe this is happening. But now Stanford back at home. They're catching 17 against UCLA. How does Stanford respond to that epic comeback last Friday night?
I think the Cardinals gained a lot of confidence from that. And really, if you look 2 weeks ago when Stanford lost 21-20 to Arizona on the Farm, I was taking, I think on this show, I actually took the, 13 with Stanford against Arizona. Cardinals should have won that game. Arizona won 21-20, like I said. The next week, Stanford was trailing Oregon 14-6 at the half. Game got away in the second half, but the Stanford's team quietly playing better football, and that's what you would expect with a coach like Troy Taylor, who's really good. And I think he took a little bit too long to settle on Ashton Daniels as his quarterback. I thought that Daniels should have been the guy the whole way, and he was throwing Justin Lamson in there and switching quarterbacks. But Daniels, 396 passing yards, 4 touchdowns last week. How about, I don't know if I got this name correct, but Alec Ayomanor, the wide receiver for Stanford.
Ayomanor? Whatever. One of those two. He was awesome.
294 yards, 3 catches. He looked like Randy Moss in his prime with some of those big plays he was making last week against Colorado. And how about Coach Prime? He's got a lot to learn about coaching. Talking about an undisciplined team, go to overtime, you're supposed to play defense. He takes the ball, goes
for a second
offense.
Time. He did it against Colorado State, too.
Learn the basics of football coaching. Can you, Coach Prime? I mean, come on. But I think Stanford gains confidence from that game. And Dante Moore has been shaky on the road. Now, this is not Salt Lake City. It's not the Oregon State defense. But Dante Moore threw 3 picks and was 14 for 33 passing in that 12-point loss to Oregon State. This number has not moved all week. So I'm not really sure if I'm on the right side here with the dog, but I'm taking the 17 with Stanford and thinking that this dog is still a little bit underrated in the betting market.
Yeah, I said that Dante Moore would struggle in Corvallis last week. I played the under. Well, he struggled too much. The interceptions came back to bite me, and hopefully, well, maybe you didn't play that one, but Oregon State and UCLA went over the total. Let's get one more game before we hit a break here. And, it's a very patriotic podcast, I would say. And the first leg of the Commander-in-Chief's Trophy will be decided on noon in Annapolis, Maryland, as Navy hosts number 22. Yeah, that's right, number 22 Air Force. Saw this nugget come in. This is the first time since, I believe, 1997 that Navy will be playing a ranked Air Force team. Air Force enters the game number 22 in the Associated poll. That is the first time that these two teams have played when Air Force is ranked since 1997, and that game actually ended 10-7 with an Air Force win. So I'll let you take the reins first on Air Force and Navy in Annapolis on Saturday.
Going to play this under, and you said there's a 35 out there, but 30,
I did, yes.
Yeah, 34.5 is the most common number in the market. Air Force without quarterback Zach Larrier, and he's the only player who's attempted a pass this season for Air Force. He's second on the team with 473 rushing yards. He's injured. He's out. How are the Falcons going to move the ball here? Well, they're going to run it like they usually do, but they're going to be down a quarterback who's one of their most effective weapons. 334 rushing yards per game, number one rushing offense in college football. I'll tell you what, this is going to be a fast game. You're not going to see any footballs in the air. It's going to be a running clock pretty much the whole time, and this Navy offense is going to have trouble scoring. I don't like playing under totals like this necessarily, but 34.5, I have to play it under. If you can find 35, even better. I'll give Ralph Michaels credit for this number. Ralph Michaels, Las Vegas handicapper, 9 FBS games with a total of 35.5 or lower since 2006. 8-1 under the total in those games. So don't be afraid to play under the low totals.
Well, and Ralph also tweeted this out. In Service Academy games since 2006, the under is 40-10-1.
Nice.
40-10-1. So I'm with Matt on the under, and I'm going to take Navy. You mentioned it. Zach Larrier out as Troy Calhoun said, he's going to be out for a while, which is certainly a big blow for Air Force, who's got a chance to win the Mountain West and earn the Group of 5 bid to the New Year's Six. But without Larrier, it's going to be Jensen Jones, who came in for a couple plays against Wyoming. He fumbled on 2 of them, so that's not ideal. And actually, both these defenses are pretty good. Air Force is 5th in the country in rushing yards allowed at 77. Navy's had some ups and downs. Air Force, a number 1 rushing team in the country. Navy, number 5. The name to know, Alex Teska, the fullback for Navy. Hopefully he can rumble into the end zone and make this game, 14-7. So I'm on the under with Matt, and I am on the mids as well. Give me those 10.5 points. All right, we will wrap things up. We got to head to the great state of Texas. How will the Longhorns face against in-state rival Houston? Get some thoughts on that. Give you our best bet recap next, right here on the VSiN College Football Betting Podcast.
This is VSiN's College Football Betting Podcast.
Become a VSiN Pro subscriber today and get a daily email recapping all the best bets from our show hosts and guests. You'll get unlimited access to our vsin.com/picks page, sort picks by sport, matchup, event date, and more. Check the top VSiN experts leaderboard to view betting records, profit, and ROI, and see which VSiN expert has the hot hand for VSiN Pro picks, betting splits, power ratings, plus 24/7 video access. Become a VSiN Pro subscriber today. Sign up for just $19 for your first month. vsin.com/subscribe. Alongside Matt Youmans, at Matt Youmans 247 on Twitter. I am Tim Murray. And, getting access to that picks page, you would have got Matt Youmans' bet on Arizona State at plus 28. Gave that out earlier this week when he was on with Mitch and Paul. So you never know. You can get a little juice on the number. I did want to get one thing across. So I did ask for the weather because I saw there could be a little bit of weather in Annapolis. We just talked about Navy and Air Force. They don't throw the ball all that much. Looks like steady winds 20 miles per hour,
nice.
Gusting 30 miles per hour. Temps in the low 60s. Chance for a couple of showers, but no heavy rain in the forecast. Shout out to local meteorologist here in Vegas, Justin Bruce from the ABC channel for that forecast on Air Force and Navy. All right, one more best bet for you, Matt, that we have not gotten to. Texas and Houston. Houston, by the way, it wasn't a bad beat if you had West Virginia, okay? Can I state that? They converted a 4th and 10 from the 50 to get the cover, and then obviously they did not cover on the Hail Mary. So initially, Matt, when I do, run through the board and I take a look at potential letdown spots, I didn't even look at who Houston was playing initially. I said, Houston, letdown spot. Then I looked at the board and I said, oh, they're playing Texas. That's not a letdown spot. They're hosting Texas for the first time as a Big 12 member, and the last time, obviously, Texas going on to the SEC. So we've seen movement a little bit here. This number sitting at 23.5, Texas at Houston, Matt.
Yeah, I'm waiting for this to tick up to 24, but at this point, we'll go with 23.5 as a play, and then you wait till game day. If you don't get to 24, you can take to 23.5. But I'm going to wait till the last possible moment to see if I can get a better number here. I do want to play Houston. I like Donovan Smith, the quarterback who transferred from Texas Tech. 66.2% completions, 13 touchdowns, only 3 picks. He's also got 196 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns. He's the type of quarterback you're going to have against this Texas defense. He's got some mobility. He can throw the ball. A little bit of a dual threat, and this is a legit Texas D. And Donovan Smith, I think, is going to be able to move this Houston offense enough to stay within this big number. And hey, let's face it, you just mentioned it. This is like the Cougars' Super Bowl, right? They're getting the Longhorns to come to Houston. Texas's last year in the Big 12. You're not going to get this again. And I don't like to bet on Dana Holgorsen. He's one of my least favorite coaches, but I think the Cougars are going to be up big time for this game. And, I'm not crazy about some of the things I've seen with the Texas offense recently and Steve Sarkisian and his play calling. So I'll take a shot here with Houston catching all these points at home because you think there's going to be a lot of fight in this dog. And, Tim, I also lean over the total at 61. I think we could see a shootout in this game.
All right, there you go. We will get our best bet recap here in just a moment. But, Matt, a couple games, no official plays on any of these games, but just curious to get some thoughts out there. Washington State at number 9, Oregon, 3:30
What's happened
Eastern.
to Washington State?
Yeah, how about that? 44-6 loss at the hands of Arizona. I'm glad I didn't bet that because I thought Washington State was going to bounce back after losing to UCLA, and they got absolutely hammered by Arizona. So now you're looking at a 20-point spread. What's the mindset of Oregon after that loss?
I think it's good.
I actually took a flyer on Bo Nix. We talked about this earlier this week. On him to win the Heisman, you can get as high as 30-1. I thought Oregon was the slightly better team than Washington on Saturday. And if we get the rematch and they're both, vying for a spot in the college football playoff, I think Oregon will win that. So Bo Nix 30-1. Oregon to make the playoffs is 5-1. So I thought taking a flyer on Bo Nix to win the Heisman. But quickly thoughts, Wazoo, Oregon. Does Oregon kind of keep it status quo after a gut-wrenching loss?
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything you said there. Bo Nix is not out of the Heisman race. A lot of people are acting like Michael Penix has got it wrapped up. There's a long way to go in this race. Don't jump to conclusions in late October. And I think the Ducks are going to be in a positive frame of mind to answer your question because everything they're playing for is still out there. Pac-12 title, college football playoff spot. I said a week ago, I didn't see any team in the country playing better than Washington. Well, the Ducks went into Seattle and played a little bit better than Washington did, I thought, last week, but mismanaged a couple of key game management situations, and that's all you need. The Huskies took advantage of the slip-ups and won the game. I think Oregon bounces back big time here and wins this game in a blowout. I have no idea what's happened to Washington State, but something's wrong with this football team, seriously wrong in the last couple weeks. So I have no interest in the dog here.
All right, a game that I've thought about taking the dog, South Carolina at number 20, Mizzou. Missouri coming off of an impressive performance over Kentucky, winning that one 38-21. Mizzou now 6-1 on the year. Their lone loss coming to LSU. South Carolina loses 41-39 to Florida last week. Shane Beamer said this week that he broke his foot kicking in frustration. Do the Gamecocks get off the mat and cover the 7.5 against Mizzou?
Is that a question?
Yes, it is a question.
I don't know if they do or not. I like this Missouri team. I think it's a, Cook is one of the better quarterbacks, if not the best quarterback in the SEC. And when I look at this, I think over the total might be the better bet. I think you're going to see a shootout here, and I would play over the total of 58 or 58.5.
All right, two quick ones before we get to our best bet recap. Once again, no bets on these, just curious thoughts. How about the primetime selection decision was Florida State Duke over Clemson and Miami? Just think about where we are. Clemson, Miami, ACC Network. Clemson is a road favorite here of 3. It's actually dipped to 2.5. Look, I backed Mario Cristobal last week. No more. I'm not backing Clemson here, but no thank you. Any thoughts on the Canes catching points at home?
Well, last week my co-host here on VSiN, Wes Reynolds, played Miami as his best bet, and it was mostly a narrative and I think a psychological angle he was looking at with the Canes and that colossal meltdown.
They led at the half.
Big mistake Miami made the week before with Cristobal. I often call Wes Reynolds the Dr. Phil of sports handicappers, and that play backfired on him last week. The psychological edge the Canes might have had coming off that game against Georgia Tech didn't play out that way. I don't like Mario Cristobal either. Like this is said, I was talking about the Houston coach Dana Holgorsen. I don't like to bet him. And sometimes when you bet these coaches you don't like and you lose, you smack yourself upside the head and say, what was I thinking betting this guy? Well, I'm not going to do it here. This is going to be a pass for me. It is going to be a game I'm interested to watch. But I'll tell you another thing. Tyler Van Dyke, the Hurricanes quarterback, has not played very well recently, so I'm going to shy away from the Canes.
All right, let's get to our best bet recap. Matt, we'll start with you. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bets. Last week, 3, 3, and 1. What do we got to recap here?
Yeah, I've been floating around the 50% mark way too much, but I guess that's better than having losing weeks, right?
That is true.
Actually, last week, Washington counted as a push for me, but I did lay 2.5. It was 3 later in the week.
VSiN.com/picks. Get there early.
I'm going with Michigan State plus 24.5 against Michigan. Stanford plus 17 against UCLA. A couple of big home dogs. A third home dog, Houston, plus 23.5. Look for 24 on this on game day. Cougars catching 23.5 against Texas. Now a big road dog, Arizona State. I got 28 early in the week, but 27 is the best you can do right now. I don't think that 28's coming back. I like to spot a lot for the Sun Devils. How about in the ugly game of the week, Minnesota, Iowa? Let's take the 3.5 with P.J. Fleck and the Gophers in Iowa City. Under the total of 34.5, Air Force, Navy. And we're going to go moneyline parlay here. Alabama, USC. If you look at the money lines of like minus 250 and minus 320, that comes out to minus 120 on the money line for Alabama SC. So those are my 7 plays for the show. Tim, by the time we get to kickoff Saturday, I'll probably have 25 bets, but then we got 7 for right now.
I have 6 for right now, and let's hopefully build off of a 4-2 week last week. Florida State minus 14. I don't think the 14 still is out there. It was when we submitted this earlier this week. Alternative way to look at that one, I'd go Duke team total under 16.5 if you don't want to lay the 14.5. I agree with Matt on the USC Alabama moneyline parlay. I've tailed it myself, but I'm going to lay the 7 with the Dirty Trojans. Fight on. Navy plus 11, 10.5 or so against Air Force. Also the under in that one. Minnesota, hold your nose, take the points with the Greek gunslinger. And then I'm going under Ohio State and Penn State 45.5. Let's have ourselves a winning week. For Matt Youmans, I'm Tim Murray. We will talk to you next week right here on the VSiN College Football Betting Podcast.